right. This is your 5-minute warning. We are going to begin our program in 5 minutes. So if you want to be seated for the program, you might want to come up and start finding a seat. Hello everyone, welcome to the 2022 Voyageurs Spring Thaw. I am Christina Hausmann-Rohde, the Executive Director of the Voyageurs Conservancy.
And I'm Bob DeGrosse, Superintendent at Voyageurs National Park. I want to thank all of you for joining us from across the country for your interest and support for the Voyageurs Conservancy and all the work that we do at Voyageurs National Park as well.
Whether you've been a member of the Voyageurs Conservancy for years or you're just finding out about us, thank you so much for being here. We are an organization fully funded by a community of people that love Voyageurs National Park and believe this place is special and worthy of our protection and preservation. You matter, and we're so grateful that you're here. The Spring Thaw is a big event to put together. We're grateful to be able to share with our member community what we do in partnership with the National Park. But I have so many people to thank, including our members, our many volunteers, especially our awesome event committee, our board of directors, and many of our corporate sponsors. Our lead sponsors we would love to thank are REI Co-op, Midwest Military, National Parks Conservation Association, Bizal Built, and MIR. Many more corporate partners can be found on our website, from gateway businesses up at Voyageurs National Park to small partners in the Twin Cities. They helped us make this event possible, and we hope you support them. This night is all about giving back to Voyageurs National Park. There's going to be many opportunities for you to contribute to the important work we're doing with the National Park Service, from land and water conservation projects to the Voyageurs Classroom Initiative, connecting kids and families to the park. Your dollars go directly into these efforts. There's a website on your screen right now you can make a contribution. In addition to that, our silent auction is live right now and closes at 8 p.m. Central Time. Get your bids in. There's some amazing packages from wildlife experiences to houseboat experiences in the national park. Make sure you get your bids in, and all of those dollars go back into the work we do with the national park.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Anton Troyer, our special speaker for this evening. Dr. Troyer is a professor of Ojibwe at Bemidji State University. He's an author, speaker, and an outstanding warrior for Ojibwe language and culture.
Dr. Troyer will share ways we all can be partners in preserving the Ojibwe culture and language. We're excited to share this experience together tonight and learn from Dr. Troyer. Thank you so much for tuning into our program.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
All right, if you're in the room, welcome. I'm gonna have you get seated. I know, if you still wanna chat and you don't wanna listen to me, you should go outside. You can definitely go outside. For if you're in the room, you're gonna listen to me. All right. My name is Christina Hausmann-Rohde, and I'm the Executive Director of the Voyageurs Conservancy. Thank you for being here tonight. We have almost 200 people in the room, and we have over 150 households joining us at home. So this is an event that's not only impacting people in the room, but we are being viewed by people across the nation, because that's how many people love Voyageurs. You want to kick it off?
And I also want to thank you for coming out tonight. I'm Bob DeGrosse. I'm superintendent of Voyageurs National Park, a very special place for all of us. Thank you. Thank you. And virtually, I was talking to Meg, one of the Voyageurs Conservancy staff earlier, and there are 32 states represented joining us tonight, either virtually or taking part in the silent auction. And that's just outstanding. It shows the broad net that Voyageurs Conservancy casts and people from all around the country connected to this special place.
I just want to do a couple welcome notes, and I want to say for anyone enjoying the festivities and the room, please continue to eat, drink, do whatever you need to do in the room while the program goes on. And for those of you at home, I'm really sorry, but the food here is awesome. I hope that thank you to the venue, and I hope you're enjoying a wonderful meal with friends and family at home while you watch this. I just wanted to say thank you for being here. This is a crazy in-person crowd and virtual crowd. We're very grateful for you, and I have a couple of thank yous to do quick. One, we have a lot of amazing partners and sponsors. I want to quickly give a shout out to a few of them. You probably shop there. REI is one of our lead sponsors. Feel free to clap for any of these. The National Park Foundation and the National Parks Conservation Association are two of our sponsors and partners in the room tonight. There are many more. The Glass House donated this space tonight because the owner is a huge fan of Voyagers and Rainy Lake. We're also super grateful to the National Park Service, the Bazal family, North Mallow. All these people in this room did a lot to contribute and be a partner and be a sponsor of this event. So thank you to all of our partners and sponsors. Couple other thank yous. So thank you so much to the board of directors and the event committee. I especially want to give a shout out to our amazing event committee. Caroline, who's at home, she's about to have a baby. You're amazing. Thank you for putting this all together. And I also want to give a quick shout out to my amazing staff team who does just all this great work and brings us all together. And that's important, right? So I'm grateful that we are gathering. Is there anything else you want to say, Bob? You want me to take it away further?
What's that?
Make a few more comments.
Yeah, I just want to say that through my time with the National Park Service, I have recognized, as a lot of National Park Service staff, both at Voyageurs National Park across the country as well, the work that we do is not just done by the National Park Service. I mean, partners are so vital to everything that we do. And so I want to just thank the staff at Voyageurs Conservancy, the board members, and then all of you who are members of Voyageurs Conservancy as well. The work that's done in the protection, just the general land protection, working with youth, connecting new audiences and diverse audiences, helping us maintain all of the infrastructure, whether it be the trails, historic structures, campsites, and all of that. It's vital work that is so important to assure that this outstanding resource is there for everyone to connect with and enjoy. So I just want to thank you all for your participation and your connection with Voyageurs National Park. Thank you.
I think the past 2 years we've all really learned the importance of connection, right? Doesn't it feel really good to be in the room with humans right now? It feels really good for me to be in the room with so many people that have been our supporters for so long. And the importance of connection in other ways, right? The importance of connection to place. How many of you found peace and solace in Voyageurs National Park during the pandemic, right? These places were really important to us over the past couple years. And so we're really excited to welcome our keynote speaker tonight, Dr. Anton Troyer, who can speak to that importance of connection. I can't even memorize Anton's bio because it's so impressive. Dr. Troyer is an American academic. and an author specializing in the Ojibwe language and American Indian studies. He's actually a professor of Ojibwe at Bemidji State. He is an expert in indigenous history and culture, and he has presented all over the world on cultural competence, equity strategies, and addressing the achievement gap. He has won over 40 awards and fellowships, including the MacArthur Foundation, Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Humanities. So if you haven't been able to speak with him yet tonight, Dr. Troyer is an amazing person who's a member of our Conservancy community, and he'll be sharing a message with us tonight.
Thank you, Christina, Bob, and everybody who made it out tonight. Kwe maji tayan niwi ojibwem ajanes mietago duwin dumunagug awian wagosh indigu minawa migizi indodem gazagasquaji mekag indun jiba. English too? When Christina asked me to come and speak, she didn't say anything at all about using a foreign language like English. I'm really excited to be here tonight. I did want to begin by giving you a brief shout out in my Ojibwe language to let you know that my native name is Wagush, that means fox. I come from the Eagle clan. In the Ojibwe culture, our clan system have animals, birds, and fish, and they're kind of like a symbol for your house, but also a spiritual guide of sorts. So I come from the Eagle clan, and I come from Leech Lake. I'm so excited and heartened to be in all of your company tonight. To know that there are so many people who care about our natural resources, who call this place home, and have found healing in their connection to Voyageurs in all of the area around us. We live in a very special place in some rather trying times, and to see everyone coming together for such a noble purpose really is a good thing. So I'm excited to share a couple of stories with you, and I have come to realize the older that I get, just how truly important our connection to place is, how much we learn from the land, how powerful it is in connecting us to one another and helping us to show up as the best versions of ourselves and to try to make this world a better place. There's so much to share. And I thought I'd begin by really sharing a simple story. This is a picture of the late Betsy Schultz. She was one of my elders, mentors, advisors. She passed away in 2002. And she was always so kind to me. I had a really deep relationship with her father, especially, who was a remarkable man. Archie Mose was born in 1901, and he was 12 years old the first time he ever saw a white man. He was in his 30s the first time he saw a car. And when I met him, he was in a small modern house watching WWF SmackDown, laughing really loud. How fast things change. He never finished second grade, but I still consider him one of the best educated people I've ever met. Betsy and all of his children were born in wigwams, and they survived because he knew how to get resources out of the lakes and out of the woods. And all of us human beings, if you go only 10,000 years ago, which in the history of humans is really not that long ago, we all had earth-based worldviews. We all lived in villages. We survived not because we were outperforming the person in the lodge next to us, but because they loved us. And they were willing to intervene if there was whatever, a saber-toothed tiger or a cave bear. today we so often focus on being competitive, materialistic, and individualistic that we forget about these connections to place and the humans right next to us. And I think that puts us in ever more adversarial relationships with the land and with each other. And we are capable of and thrive best when we get reoriented. And that, of course, requires some introspective work and places where we can genuinely go to connect and revitalize those things. So Betsy was really, really nice to me. Every time I met her, she would kiss me on each cheek, hug me close. She just loved the way that I loved her dad and everybody in their entire family. And back in 1997, I was on my way to the St. Croix Reservation, which is right on the Minnesota-Wisconsin border, and was going to a drum ceremony. And I remember this is where I had kind of gone with Archie Mosé so many times, and I remember driving over there thinking, I wonder who's going to be speaking today. Because a year before, Archie had passed away, and they were going to be opening a bundle to bring his family out of mourning. And so I was certain that I was going to be there, but he, even in his advanced years, would usually get asked to give a speech, an invocation, a prayer, even to do a lot of singing. And I remember thinking on the one hand, why don't they give the old man a break? I mean, he's in his 90s, you know? But his was the voice that they wanted to hear. You don't live that long without learning a lot of things along the way. And I went over there, and I was looking around, and here came Betsy, who is, again, super sweet. But she also, you could see this kind of so-called mean Indian look that she could come up with sometimes. And usually it was when she was like staring at her grandkids, and she'd shake her cane at them, and they'd do whatever she said, even though she would never hurt them. And for the first time in my life, she ended up looking at me like I was one of her grandkids. She came over and she said, "Do you want to know who's talking today?" I said, "Yeah, who could it be?" She said, "Well, that's you." I said, "What?" And she had a line of people behind her. Each had, the custom there was once somebody opened up the ceremony, that then anyone who wanted to could bring a bowl of food as kind of an offering and ask for special prayer. So there's a line of them. And they all had tobacco, which is what they used as part of the offering. So I had pouches between all of my fingers, in my fists. I looked just crazy. And she said, "My dad never forgot what somebody was asking for, never forgot their native name, and I'll be listening." Talk about pressure. And so I got up there, stuttering and stammering around, but I pulled it off. I dared one glance at her, and she just gave me one slow affirmative nod. And that was that. I felt kind of like Forrest Gump, like once he figured out how to run, after that, every time he went somewhere, he was running, and he never thought it would take him anywhere, but it sure did. And I kind of felt like that with my language and culture journey, which was very much connected to place and community. And so I consider myself, by the way, an extremely unlikely candidate to have much to share about any of these things, for a whole variety of reasons. For starters, my father wasn't native at all. He was an Austrian Jewish immigrant, a Holocaust survivor, spoke nothing but German the first 13 years of his life, got out several months after the Anschluss, the German annexation of Austria, and he and eventually both of his parents and two cousins made it out of there. Everyone else in the family was killed in the Holocaust. There's about 300 close family members. He had grown up in Vienna, but their family had land in the Bad-Aussee region, kind of in the foothills of the Alps, where they kept orchards and bees and things like that. And it had been this kind of land-based connection and practice that had always been something that had reoriented their family in their connection to place, to one another, and as a source of healing. And of course, he had been dislocated from that and had to run for his life. He has an amazing story, and I could fill all of our time with that, so I'm going to have to give you the short kind of Reader's Digest versions, but I'll be sticking around after. If you want more, I'm happy to fill in. But by age 14, made it to the U.S. At age 17, lied about his age, enlisted in the U.S. Army so he could go kill Nazis, but they sent him to the Pacific Theater. He was stationed in the Philippines. And eventually, he made his way to Minnesota, met my mom, and here I am. Now, my mother had a very different experience, and her grandmother was really the last generation in our family where all of the kids were busy hollering at each other in our tribal language, and this was the normal life way. Culture is many things, so it includes religion, it includes language, it includes our everyday practices, it includes where do we get our food, from a grocery store, from the woods, those kind of things. Some parts of that cultural toolbox were always quite vibrant, but other parts came under a really direct assault. And so my grandmother, Luella, who passed away at the age of 98 just several months ago, as a very small child, was taken away from her parents, sent to residential boarding school, prohibited from practicing that cultural toolbox. She made it through growing up in those schools and institutions back to Bena, in the heart of the Leech Lake Reservation, population 400, half of whom are my cousins. And she married a local boy, and my mom came along. And my mom had quite an amazing story of her own. For her, I think some of this land-based culture was something everybody had to do, not so much because it was a cool cultural pastime, as much as it was a necessary means of survival. They pulled the kids from school during wild rice season, and everybody had to get out there and harvest wild rice. And they all had to contribute to putting food on the table. As she went to school, she met one professional Native person ever. Just one. That was the school nurse. She thought, maybe I can do that. So she went on and got a nursing degree. And then one of her first jobs was coming back to the tribe to work for the tribe's health program. And she was thinking, wow, Native people are getting pushed around. This isn't right. I'm going to do something about that. She went on and got a law degree. She actually became the first female Native attorney in the state of Minnesota. And so I got to grow up. Yeah. I got to grow up watching my mom with powwow braids, Indian Health Service Coke bottle eyeglasses, and a suit, being the only woman in court, being the only Native in court, and fighting for what she believed in with effect. And I think this showed me a lot of different things. The power of an education, the importance of manifesting the kinds of justice, action that we want to see in the world. There were a lot of things. I guess you could say that my dad was hitting the restart button. My mother was trying to find a pathway out of poverty. And we had humble beginnings too. We had a little house with no electricity or running water. It had a hand pump. There was an outhouse, kerosene lanterns. That was me as a tyke. We'd wash up in the creek in the summer, enamel wash basins in the winter. But I never felt poor, never had food insecurity. And in addition to right next to our house, my parents would take me up to Kabetogama to go pick blueberries and to canoe around in the lakes and rivers. And I think it expanded my sense of place and its importance for many different reasons. Of course, I saw big changes. I was in about middle school by the time my mom had her law degree, built a nice house. Economics and a lot of other things changed. Here's Archie Mose. And I kind of I suppose I freaked my parents out many times growing up. By the time I finished high school, like a lot of high schoolers, my plan was to get out of town and never come back. And then as soon as I left, I said I want to go home and never leave, which I actually did. And when I finished college, I'd gone to Princeton University, by the way. I told my parents I'm not taking a job, and I'm also, not going to grad school. I'm going to come back to the woods, and I'm going to hang out in the woods. I'm going to go hang out with my elders. I'm going to learn a little more about my language and culture. And they said, that's beautiful. Good luck paying for that because we're done. So I did. And this is like pre-cell phones. So I got in a car. I drove to the village where Archie Mosé lived. They still had phone booths in those days and phone books. Foreign things to my children now. And so I started looking up Mosés, and I found him. And when I came in and he's watching WWF SmackDown on the TV, he stopped and he looked at me and he said, turned off the TV and he said, "Oh, I've been waiting for you." And I remember thinking, how could you be waiting for me? You don't even know who I am. But he had a dream, and I looked like the person in his dream, and he kind of just opened the door to me after that. I was sleeping on his couch. I was his gopher. Go for this. Go for that. Drive me here, drive me there. Get that drum, whatever. And I just had a really privileged experience to have an immersive experience in our language and culture that really started to take me places. Here's my crew, 9 kids. Big, beautiful, blended family. It's never dull. My wife's in the middle of the pile there. She's the one with the blonde hair and blue eyes. She's sitting over here in the front. But she's from the Swedish-American tribe. So somebody's getting along out there. She's, by the way, quite fascinating to speak to on her own for a lot of reasons. Aside from the fact that she's a very successful textile artist, she's one of the only white people I know who knows what it's like not to see another white person for extended periods of time, which happens when we go to ceremonies, as well as when she was locked in a house with this during the pandemic, and all kinds of other things. So I think a lot of times when we think about things like connection, we look externally. Where can I find the special place where it's all magically held? And one of the big lessons that I have learned, and this is about my cultural journey, my language journey, but about everything else too, is that those things live inside of us. And that when we hone our introspective tools, when we learn about who we are, that it gives so much more meaning to all of those other things. And of course, we are all on a spectrum, both with our introversion and extroversion. We get energy from others, and we get energy by being away from people. And some of us are, have heavier needs on one or the other. But we all are impacted by all of those things. And so I think it's really important to think about looking within and looking without, because both are part of this humanization and healing that, frankly, we all need. Really, if you think about what humans have done to each other since the dawn of the agricultural age, we developed an adversarial relationship with Mother Earth. We started converting more and more land to human food production, killing off competitive predator species. There's lions and things like that on the emblems for European nations, but they killed them all off. And the wolves, and all kinds of other things, so we could have more resources for us, not even thinking about all the ways that this would reorder ecosystems and harm the planet. In Ojibwe, it's really interesting. The word for my great-grandparent and the word for my great-grandchild, it's the same word, Indonikobijigan. And what it means is my line. We are all here because 7 generations ago, and that spans 7 generations from your great-grandparent to your great-grandchild, because 7 generations ago, someone in our family was making important decisions, probably during really tough times, to try to give us the best chance at a long, healthy, happy life. And they must have done all right, or we wouldn't be here. Today, I believe, we should be making decisions thinking about 7 generations ahead. No one's going to remember our names. But there's a chance that they can paddle around Voyageur country in a canoe and receive healing from that. If we think about my grandchildren's children's children's children, with everything that we do, we wouldn't have so many of these climate change and other environmental stresses and disasters that are kind of looming over our youngest generations. And so I believe that as Indigenous people, we have some lessons to share with the rest of the world. We should be pollinating the garden that everybody's trying to harvest from. All of us are Indigenous to somewhere. We've just often lost touch with those Indigenous connections. And what does it mean to be Indigenous is in connection to place. My ancestral village of Bena, my relatives have been buried there longer than America's been a country. Boy, that feels different. Harder to sell the family farm and move to California, which is the American experience. We celebrate our freedom, including the freedom to move to California, have a malleable identity, and become Californian, to the point where people have a couple kids who live in 2 totally different states and use Facebook and FaceTime and try to keep it real. But those connections to each other that happen through place can be the most grounding and healing for all of us. So in many ways, when I think about the really rich experience that my father had in his place-based identity back in Austria, that my mother had growing up in her ancestral village, and then how these things came under assault, like with my grandmother being brought to a residential boarding school and breaking the intergenerational transmission of language and some parts of our culture in our family. It was a rebuilding effort for my mom and for me, and it's ongoing. I've been thinking since my first kid was born, and of course, being a parent is terrifying. You know, you got one shot at it. The main goal is not to mess your kid up, but you don't get a do-over. So, you know, it's horrifying, but so beautiful too. And so I vowed to do my best to reinvigorate this kind of intergenerational transmission of our language, culture, and connection to place. So these are some pictures of my firstborn daughter, Madeline Gijagukwe. I started speaking to her in Ojibwe as a child, and I remember her waking up at like age 2 in the middle of the night. She's crying, and I said, "It's working. It's working. Yes!" You know, crying around for milk. But it was so cool to watch her grow and develop. Today, she's part of a team, and we have been going out and recording elders and building Ojibwe language resources. On the bottom here, she's talking to one of our elders. She'll sit there, record stories, transcribe, translate. And just through the pandemic alone, we published year 1 of Rosetta Stone for Ojibwe, a bunch of new Ojibwe books. And so there's some really cool stuff going on in language and culture revitalization. And to see that she can be a contributor in that arena without me doing anything for her is really heartening. And it gives me hope about all of our prospects for recovering from colonization, disconnection from the land, from each other, and things like that. There's so many powerful ways that this happens, and I'll just share one or two quick stories. But this is a picture of one of my sons who could not sit still in a desk for 5 minutes. A deer stand 5 hours in a row, no problem, no flinching. And we have a really cool ceremony when somebody has their first successful hunt. And we'll cook up some of the food. The ancient custom was to cook up a whole deer, and everybody was living in a wigwam village, and they'd all come and eat it in one fell swoop. Now, we live like everybody else, modern houses, schools, jobs, things like that. So we'll cook up some, but we invite over the whole extended family, and there's a prayer. But instead of just eating, we have this custom where we take a little spoon of the cooked venison and we offer it to the successful hunter, saying his name. And he has to refuse the first bite and say, no. I'm thinking about children who don't have enough. Ah, okay. Put it back, get another one. Say his name, no. I'm thinking about my elders who can't get out in the woods to hunt for themselves. Ah, okay, put it back. And again, say his name, no. I'm thinking of my family, my community, people who came here today to support me. Ah, okay. And again. And then he can eat. And then we'll say, you know what? You just changed your life. Up until today, you are what we call a dependent, meaning you depended on everybody in this room to provide all of your food. And there they are, grandparents, aunts, uncles, parents. Today, though, you are providing for all of us. Now, that's what it means to be an adult. And you'll have this very special power whenever you go hunting, whenever you go fishing, whenever you pick berries, also whenever you get a job. Whenever you gather resources, you should be thinking about children who don't have enough, elders who can't get it for themselves, your family, your community, the things that sustain and heal you and give you life. And they take the rest of their killed, packaged up venison, give it away, so they're impoverished, but rich. Now, I have 9 kids, so I get to do a lot of experimenting on them. And I have to say that this sort of thing has profound effects. This kid, man, you should have seen him. I had a friend one time was saying, oh, my back, I can't get out in the woods. I haven't been hunting in so long. I don't even have any deer meat in my freezer. Kid was about 16, didn't say anything, but he went out, he harvested a deer, packaged it up, went to my friend's house, filled up his freezer. My friend called and said, he was on the verge of tears. I didn't even know people remembered that teaching. Or the same kid, getting ready for prom. He and his buddy were going to double date to prom, and his friend's mom said, my next check, I'll get you the tux, I promise. And something happened with the car, and she said, I can't afford it. So he's all heartbroken, ready to cancel his prom date. And my son says, forget that, come on, let's go. Went to the Goodwill, they found a suit that fit, bought it. They all went to prom and had a good time. So it's one thing to explicate. We should think about others who don't have enough. Think of elders, think of whatever. But it's a whole nother thing to demonstrate. And I believe that these kinds of cultural practices reflect our values as a people, but they also shape our values as a people. It's the same when you take a kid canoeing. So many young people feel so disconnected. It's so important to give it our time, to show people what really matters, and to live that. In Hawaii, it's amazing to me, but 30 years ago, their language was illegal for use in public schools. They were down to 1,000 speakers left. Today they have 23,000 speakers of Hawaiian, 22 Hawaiian medium schools. You can go to school K-12 and get a college degree, all with Hawaiian as the language of instruction. That's cool. And they have so many cool customs. Like the ancient custom, theirs is a matrilineal society. And so when a baby's born, they take about a week after the kid's born, the stub of the umbilical cord falls off. They go out to the lava beds, dig a divot, put a rock on top and place it there. They remember their spots, and then goes the next kid and the next kid. So on the petroglyphs here, you can see the divots where people's, the stub of the umbilical cords have gone. And then when a girl grows up and becomes a mother, then she gets a circle around her divot, and then her babies go there. Go out to the petroglyphs, and it's acres and acres of divots and circles, connecting people to their matrilineal line and to the Aina, Mother Earth. And they even have this little custom where they say little kids should be close to their mom and close to home. And kids who get a little older should at least stay on their island. And when they're adults, they can represent our community to the rest of the world, but once they're elders, they should come and spend time with young people and transfer spiritual fire to them. And there's like a purpose to all of these things, connection to place. Now, I'm not advocating we appropriate, Hawaiian customs, but we can learn a lot about the importance of place. I like the Carl Jung quote. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed. There is animacy in the land too, and I feel this in the connection to place. I think my father, who got jarred out of his kind of sacred space, had to form a new bond with new land. This is kind of the view off the front deck of my house. I feel like Shrek. That's my swamp. Among things that had happened when he was getting started is he had put in a bid on a piece of property taken in a tax forfeiture. Got a letter back that said, yours is the only bid. But he must have really lowballed them. As I said, it's not enough money to cover the delinquent taxes. Can you find a couple $100 extra, which he borrowed. But the land didn't look like that. It looked like this. Wide open farm fields. Now, some generations before, it probably was a virgin pine forest, clear cut and turned into farm fields. And that's him on the tractor with my brother there. He started planting trees. And it's pretty remarkable, but he got involved in conservation efforts. He formed a tree farm, planted all of the trees in that picture there, changed the entire landscape and the ecosystem. That was just one guy. Granted, he had a child labor force. And from there, it wasn't just about his experiment on his private property, but he started bringing us all over the place, throughout the boundary waters, canoeing in Voyageur country. By the way, can I just point out, I'm glad he didn't try to gain employment as a fashion consultant. But he did try to teach it to us kids. And when you think about what Oberholzer did, fighting mines, deforestation, trying to carve out a piece of land where we could all get some healing, not just as a respite, but so that we could reconnect, to kind of re-indigenize in a way that part of the human experience that we all need. It's a very, very special gift. For me, in my home space, this time we still have some snow up north, and we're still in the midst of sugar bushing. But we have a custom when a child's born where we take the placenta and we bury it by the base of a maple tree, which is the tree of life. So when we open up our sugar bush, my daughter's usually doing the prayer in Ojibwe, and the kids are telling the legends about the sugar bush, and then they're making offerings and pulling life from the trees of life where their placentas are buried. And I have this kind of beautiful sense of connection to place, to the land, to the woods, to everyone across generations in my family. And although that might look different for any one of us, we all need things like that. What one human being could do within his life, what one group of people, or what a nonprofit organization can do as we work to protect and reinvigorate these things. There are proposals now for opening up hunting on timber wolves. We're fighting to maintain some sacred spaces where you can see the night sky as my ancestors did. These are important efforts. Without those efforts, there's no guarantee that 7 generations from now, everybody gets to see it. And because these things are under pressure, we have to amplify our efforts and support for such sacred duties. But there is a lot at stake, and there is a lot that even a small group of people can accomplish. You may be familiar with the Margaret Mead quote, "Never doubt what a small group of people can do." I'm going to butcher the translation. But it's the only thing that has ever orchestrated meaningful change. And that's what everyone in this room is about. For me personally, Voyageurs has been one of those places, and I know it has for everybody else here too. But it's not just for what we can get out of it, but for what we can give people 7 generations from now when nobody knows our names. That really matters. That's a statement about our humanity, our thoughtfulness, our love for them. And it is a special place, and it is a worthwhile endeavor. So as you think about what all of you have done, connected to Oberholzer and others who worked so hard to make this possible, then I know you will sustain and amplify your efforts because you can all see the true power of giving. Miigwech, thank you so much.
All my words went away. So I think what I will say is that if we can play a small part as the Conservancy community in thinking about 7 generations past and 7 generations forward, I think of our work in connecting the past and the culture of the ancestral lands and being better at recognizing that and holding each other accountable to that. And then thinking better about that 7 generations forward. And I want to share a little video with you highlighting some of the work, especially some of the work we are doing to get kids in canoes in the park, right? Because that's what really matters. So this is a little video of all of the projects and programs that you guys make happen. So thank you.
When I get asked to talk about Voyageurs National Park, I can't help but light up. You can have incredibly special experiences seeing wildlife, being outside, and knowing that this is a place you can always return to and it will be here for you.
I am so very passionate about this area of the planet of Minnesota. It's Minnesota's only national park. I think my first trip was when I was 6 months old. I feel at home when I'm here, and I feel a sense of peace that I haven't found in the entire world.
We taught my kids to swim in Cavtogma. My kids are 6 and 3, so it's all about watching wildlife. We watch for the beaver that'll go by.
I have a 13-year-old daughter, and she's been coming to the park since she was 2 months old. You know, it's great to be able to get kids out into the park and get them out into nature.
I have 2 daughters. I want to make sure places like Voyageurs National Park are here for them forever, for their grandchildren. This is a living laboratory. We're investing in this place.
I think it's important to get kids and the general public involved in national parks because I think it's an experience that not everyone grows up with, especially if you grew up in a big city area and you're not exposed to camping or hiking or nature in general. I think it's important to get people from diverse backgrounds out here so that we can continue teaching why these places are so valuable.
I think it's important to get people, kids and families especially, into national parks because people who are in national parks are the people who are going to protect our planet. And when you get people into a national park, they get to know a really incredible resource.
The Voyageurs Classroom Initiative is how we are approaching getting K-12 students and college students into the park and experiencing it. And into the park can be actual experiences, field experiences on the park grounds and on the water. It can also be virtual experiences in their classroom where they get a chance to really interact with rangers from the park or conservancy professionals who can tell them more about the science and social studies and history of this place.
One of our future priorities working with the Voyageurs Classroom Initiative is to assure that we tell the story of the cultures that have been tied to the lands of Voyageurs National Park, including the Ojibwe, the Boys Fort, the Grand Portage, the Red Lake, and all the different bands of the Ojibwe people that have been tied to the lands of Voyageurs National Park for generations in the past, still tied to it today, and continue to be tied to these lands for generations in the future.
So we're building a joint education program between Voyageurs National Park and Voyageurs Conservancy to ensure that we have a solid program that can last over time, over funding cycles. It's important for us to have a joint education program because it builds a stronger partnership between our organizations. It makes it possible for us to reach more students because we have the expertise and the deep love of the park from the Park Service employees, and then we have the folks who really understand the relevance to the folks around Minnesota from the Conservancy. And so we're able to connect these two pieces to really build an exciting joint program.
Voyageurs National Park is special, I think, because we have a resource here which usually isn't addressed with many of our national parks, and that is our waterways. We protect many times the geology and the cultural history and the animals, and so I feel like it's really cool that Voyageurs, being such a water-based park, we really take extra precautions in preserving that as a valuable resource.
Voyageurs National Park has some of the most outstanding waters within the state of Minnesota. Unfortunately, dealing with invasive exotic species is always a challenge. And just last year in 2021, the state of Minnesota, through the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, identified zebra mussel larvae within Black Bay of Rainy Lake. We've worked very closely with Voyageurs Conservancy to assure that we can increase our boat decontamination process out at Kettle Falls this summer. It's always challenging dealing with invasive species, but our hope is that we can eliminate the zebra mussels from moving from Rainy Lake up the watershed.
Voyageurs National Park is such a special place, and I think people should become involved, whether it's volunteering, contributing. Definitely, I'd love for you to become a member and be a part of the collective, the group that thinks this place is important and want to share it with many people who haven't been to the park, giving them exposure that Minnesota has a national park that we can experience.
If you believe in wild places like Voyageurs National Park, you should be a member of Voyageurs Conservancy.
I am a member of Voyageurs Conservancy, and I highly recommend that you try it out as well. I think even if you don't make it up here ever, it's still important. This place still exists. I would hope that you could come and enjoy it, but if not, help us protect it.
So every person that steps foot in Voyageurs National Park, every gateway business, the Conservancy, the Park Service, we all have a role in protecting this land. And the teamwork in that, collaborating and protecting it together, is the only way to really preserve what we have up here.
As a guide service, our livelihood and our way of life rely on healthy fisheries and clean water. Voyageurs National Park is so special because it's one of the few places in the world that still feels untouched and is truly pristine. And keeping it that way is very important for all gateway businesses and visitors.
A great program that we were able to start in cooperation with the Voyageurs Conservancy in 2021 is our Voyageurs Field Fellowship Internship opportunity, where we bring college students into the park and provide them opportunities to work in the field in education, in aquatics, and now in wildlife as well. Matter of fact, this summer we'll have 5 interns working with us. Through this program and through the partnership with the Conservancy, able to actually provide those internship students with a reasonable stipend where we weren't able to do that in the past. And it gives the students a great opportunity to garner real-life field experience that they'll be able to use in their college career and eventually, hopefully, in their conservation career once they move on from college.
Thank you so much, Voyageurs Conservancy members, for all that you do. Your support means so much to us in protecting these national parks and providing the outreach to the public so that everyone can continue enjoying these special areas.
Now, I just want to say thank you to the Conservancy members. Through all the work you do, we've been able to build new trails like at Makuta, and we're able to get kids into the park, which is incredibly important. So really, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do.
I've been working with the National Park Service for many years, and through my career, the one thing I know is that there's no way that the National Park Service can care for these special places just by ourselves. I want to thank all of you as Voyager Conservancy supporters. From the National Park Service team, we're so grateful for our partnership, and we look forward to all of the great things that we can do in the future.
Hi everybody, as it says, I'm Will Schaffroth. I'm the President and CEO of the National Park Foundation. We are the congressionally chartered national partner of the National Park Service, the official charity for the national parks. And we work with 250 organizations like the Voyageurs Conservancy to provide support and technical assistance and resources to help organizations like that do even more. First of all, Anton Troyer, thank you very much for what an incredible contribution to all of us tonight to hear your great words of wisdom, and I know we all resonate with so much of what you said, so thank you for being here. And Christina and Bob, I got to tell you that we work with a lot of these groups around the country, and the secret sauce that results in great outcomes is when the head of the Friends group and the superintendent of the park have the kind of relationship these two have. Seriously, it's magic, and it means that there's an alignment between the nonprofit partner who's out trying to raise support and the superintendent who understands the real value of that and is going to find a lane for those organizations to do the work that they do. So congratulations to you guys for having such a great partnership. So the real reason I'm here is that Bob's predecessor, Mike Ward, convinced me to detour from going to a trip to Quetico one year and just come visit us for a little bit, for a few days in Voyageurs. And so we went into the backcountry, and after a couple of days, my buddy Jeff, who's sitting right here, we climbed through this bushwhacking mountain to get to the top, to get one bar on our cell phone, to call Mike and say, can we stay for another week? This place is amazing. And that was in 2011, and we've been every year since for a week in the backcountry, except for 2020, to restore, to refresh, to renew our spirits, to connect with nature, to do all the things that you all do when you go that kind of remind us of what's really important in life, frankly, that there's so much out there that's so much bigger than all of us and what we do, and it kind of puts all of us in our place in a way, and kind of what a small little dot we are and how connected we are to something so much bigger. So For me, it's the quiet, it's the dark skies, it's the sound of the loons at 5 a.m., it's the swimming across a lake as far as I can last, and just being with my buddy and just being with myself. And so I love this place, and I came out from Washington to support Christina and this work here. And just want you to know that, you know, of all the organizations that we work with around the country, there aren't that many that really are ones that we're supporting in a full-throated way. We're providing capacity building work, we're partnering up on land conservation, we're helping with some of these youth activities. Really an amazing partnership that we have with them, and the work that they're doing really demonstrates, you know, what is beneficial about these kinds of organizations, and the tremendous impact and difference they make across the national park system. And just realize that we in the United States are so blessed to have national parks. You know, we have connections around the world, and everybody wants to know how we did this. But our forefathers and mothers have been intelligent in setting aside these lands for the benefit of our great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren, right? Is that the 7 generations down? And this is what is our legacy to appreciate and enjoy, but also to steward for the next generations. And so that's why we're all here tonight. And that's why we have been thinking about how can we catalyze the whole nation around a campaign for our national parks. So we've launched a $1 billion campaign to support our national parks. Voyageurs is a part of this campaign. The work that they're doing very much aligns around the goals of this national effort to connect people of all walks of life to our national parks, to conserve the natural resources, to tell the stories of America no matter what they are. And I want to tell you, and Anton mentioned as well, your presence here tonight means a lot, and your contributions to tonight and ongoing are critically important for us to make the kind of difference that we need to make. You just saw from Bob and his team's articulation, the challenges that exist in Voyageurs in every national park are gigantic. The federal budget, I got to tell you, is pretty static. It's not going to grow very much, and in fact, we have 3,500 fewer National Park Service employees than we did in 2010, and we have 20% more visitors visiting our national parks than we did 10 years ago. That just means that the contributions that we all make are critically important to support the place that we love. So there's going to be a number that's going to come up here, isn't there? There it is. So we're going to ask you tonight to help us reach this goal of $55,000. We're at $46,385. You can get on your cell phone, you can donate, you can text Spring Thaw, which is the name of our event tonight, to 76278 and click the link. That will allow you, just like Mr. Anonymous or Mrs. Anonymous did. You know, Caroline Pfluger, thank you, Caroline Pfluger, the member of the board of directors. Excellent job. Yes. But do what you can do. Dig a little deeper, make it a little uncomfortable, make it hurt just a little bit when you do that, and you will feel good about yourself tomorrow. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.